Fred Vasseur is simply brilliant. He showed his mettle when leading Alfa Romeo. In just 6 seasons, he lifted Alfa from the very bottom of the constructors' standings to 6th, the highest the team had ever seen. Obviously, this was spotted by his Italian overlords, and they promptly moved him to Ferrari, replacing Matteo Binotto in 2022.
Mission failed. We'll get him next time.
Since then, Ferrari has turned from a bit of a joke to a team that's currently the second fastest on the grid, has a 7-time world champion contracted for 2025 in Lewis Hamilton, and until then has 2 brilliant drivers in seats, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, one of the best reserve drivers we've seen in a long time in Oliver Bearman, and now they're going after Red Bull's top brass. This could be a very interesting time for the Scuderia and could be Hamilton's greatest play yet. Vasseur is seemingly ironing out all of Ferrari's issues that hampered its fine-ish performance last year. We could actually see it towards the end of the season. They were right up there fighting for podiums by the end of the season, but they were struggling with tyre degradation and by the end of the season weren't able to match Mercedes in the constructors. They had some bad luck. Vegas, for example, saw Sainz take a huge hit in points thanks to those pesky drain covers, but you could tell that the drivers were really starting to work with the SF23. This year, you could see straight away that Ferrari had made a huge jump in performance, with the issue of degradation now a thing of the past. In Bahrain, both Sainz and Leclerc had brake issues, and one driver still managed to get on the podium behind the Red Bulls. Then Saudi came, and it was Leclerc's chance to show what he'd got while Sainz watched on from the paddock with a hole where his appendix used to be. With both Hamilton and Norris on softs, Leclerc was still able to set the fastest lap of the race on his final lap. Yeah, that tyre degradation is a thing of the past. It's clear to see Ferrari is onto something special, and this is compounded by the fact that Sainz, the man who currently doesn't have a seat for next year, is now a walking billboard. He wants to do everything he can to look like the best driver in red, so he's going to prove to the world that he fully deserves a seat worthy of his talents. Aston Martin maybe, possibly even Red Bull if Perez doesn't continue his success, or maybe he'll get on the Audi train early and head over to Sauber. But for this year, he and Leclerc are going to be putting in some of the best racing of their careers because, well, they can't afford not to. But they need a Ferrari that can keep them fighting. And Vasseur is pulling through on his promise. According to Formula Uno, there's an extreme version of the SF24 sat in the wind tunnel waiting to make its debut. So far, the car's been brilliant. It's stable, unlike last year, and has shown that its cooling is efficient. This will be Ferrari's base to work from. There will be minor upgrades in April, which Vasseur has admitted, but the big change, the 2.0 upgrade, will be introduced in Imola, with an all-new floor and new side pods. But what are these changes? Well, unsurprisingly, with the Red Bull 2 minutes up the road, Ferrari will be following in their footsteps by narrowing the intakes and forming a more aggressive undercut on the side pod. With cooling under control, they can afford to play around a bit in search for more performance while not putting their power unit under too much pressure. The RB20 has a very different type of side pod, and it's one that Ferrari is unlikely to copy because of the layout of the radiators and the cooling underneath it. On top of that, it reacts with the suspension in a certain way aerodynamically, and let's face it, the whole car works as one system. So Ferrari can't just plonk on a new side pod and call it a day. But it's clear that Ferrari is taking notes from the RB19 and 20. Well, that's not the only thing they're possibly taking from Red Bull. No, another rumour, this time from the Italian media website Gazzetta, expects Ferrari to be using everything going on at the Milton Keynes outfit right now as leverage to take some of their best minds. Adrian Newey, in need of no introduction, has confirmed that he will be staying at Red Bull for the time being. Whether it's with a focus on the F1 car or their upcoming hypercar, the RB17, we don't know, but he's staying. So where's the next best place to look than the bright minds that work in his team? Seeing what was going on, and I suppose is still going on with Christian Horner, and the effect it could be having on Red Bull internally, Vasseur has swooped in to see if he can pick off any stragglers who maybe aren't too happy with the reaction of all this drama going on. One of which is Pierre Wash, Newey's right-hand man. But look, he's big time, and Red Bull will do everything not to lose him, But there are other talents who don't get their names in the headlines quite as much as Wash and Newey, but are equally as valuable. David Morgan is one of them, Red Bull's on-track development manager. After 5 years in Williams, he moved to Red Bull and has since been there for 6. He looks after the data learnt from real-life driving and correlates it with the simulator, allowing for more accurate upgrades. Ben Waterhouse, head of performance, he makes sure the downforce of the car works with a suspension setup. And finally, Alessandro Germani, he leads the aerodynamic development and isn't too bad at the old CFD simulations. These 3 are the golden trifecta of Red Bull behind Newey and Wash, and if Ferrari get these, they gain the secret ingredients behind what makes the RB20 so damn fast. If they can steal them for 2025, it's going to be a good year for the Tifosi. But then come 2026, Ferrari could come out as a top contender to win a championship against a team that has lost some of its best minds. And let's not forget, Red Bull will be using Ford powertrains. We don't know who's going to have the best powertrains in 2026, but newcomer Ford will find it a lot harder than Ferrari. And all of this lines up with Lewis Hamilton, who has gotten to grips with the team and its processes during the first year with them. Then bam, the regulations change, every team starts from ground zero, but Ferrari, with its newfound talent, has a leg up on the competition. This could be Hamilton's 8th championship in the making, or Leclerc's first, something I'm sure many fans will want to see. We've just published this post to our Instagram at F1 Briefings. Make sure you go over there and we can have a conversation about who's impressing you the most so far this season. But for me, it's got to be Fred Vasseur. He's shaping up to be a breath of fresh air for Ferrari. I think it's going to pay off in the not too distant future.